A corrections officer at Rikers Island once told a reporter that the hardest part of the job wasn't the violence, it was the paperwork. Not the incident reports or the disciplinary write-ups, but the other paperwork. The handwritten ledgers, the folded notebook pages covered in numbers, the scraps of receipt paper that inmates swallowed or flushed the moment a shakedown started. You'd find these things, he said, and you'd know you were looking at a bank, a whole operating bank, and there wasn't a damn thing you could legally do about the math. That math is what this episode is about. It's 6:47 on a Tuesday morning at a medium security facility in Central California, and Marcus hasn't slept. Not because of the noise, though there's always noise. He's awake because he owes 43 soups. In the world Marcus left behind in Stockton in 2019, 43 soups means roughly $18 at a dollar store. Inside the California state system in 2024, 43 soups is a number that keeps a man awake at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning, calculating whether his sister can get $200 to a Cash App account in Modesto before Thursday's count. It's not about the soups, Marcus explained, speaking to a journalist through a prison advocacy organization that arranged the interview. It's never about the soups, it's about what the soups represent, who you owe them to, what happens if you don't pay. This is the story of a financial system that operates entirely without banks, without regulators, without legal tender, and without mercy. It is, in the truest sense of the word, an economy. And like every economy in human history, it was built on scarcity, trust, and the credible threat of consequences. To understand how a pack of dried noodles becomes a monetary instrument, you have to understand what the commissary actually is, and more importantly, what it isn't. In most American correctional facilities, the commissary is a store. Inmates with approved account funds can purchase a limited list of goods: hygiene products, snack foods, writing materials, postage stamps. The selection is deliberately narrow. The prices are deliberately high. Studies have shown commissary markups running between 40 and 100% above retail. A bag of chips that costs 99 cents at a gas station might cost $1.60 behind the wall. This is not an accident. This is policy. Dr. Keisha Edmonds, an economist at Howard University, who has spent 8 years studying informal markets in correctional institutions, explains the consequence of this design. When you restrict access to goods and simultaneously restrict access to cash, she says, you don't eliminate commerce. You force it underground. You force it into whatever medium of exchange the population decides to trust. And what corrections administrators don't understand is that the population is very good at deciding what to trust. For most of the 20th century, cigarettes served as that trusted medium. A carton of Marlboros was the dollar bill of the American prison system. But starting in the mid-1990s, facilities began banning tobacco products, citing health concerns and fire risks. The economists in correctional policy who anticipated the downstream effects of that decision could fit inside a small room. They did not anticipate mackerel. In 2008, a Wall Street Journal reporter named Justin Sheck published a piece that read like economic satire but was entirely factual. The de facto currency of the federal prison system had become canned mackerel. At approximately $1 per can, it was portable, non-perishable, nutritionally valuable, and, critically, issued in a standardized, tamper-evident unit that everyone could verify. You couldn't debase mackerel. You couldn't clip it. One can was one can. The economics community called it Mackerel Economics, and while that framing had a certain academic whimsy to it, what it actually described was a population of human beings, most of them poor, many of them highly intelligent in ways that formal education had never captured, spontaneously recreating one of the oldest functions in the history of civilization: commodity money. By 2015, most facilities had capped mackerel purchases to limit its currency function. The market adapted immediately. Postage stamps emerged in some systems. standardized, government-issued, widely accepted, and backed by an institution with a 250-year track record. In others, the humble ramen packet became the unit of account. Ramen has everything you want in a currency, Dr. Edmonds says. Durability, divisibility, portability, recognizability. In some facilities, a soup is so standard that guys quote prices in soups and everyone understands the conversion instantly. It's not metaphorical. It is literally money. In 2026, this system is facing its first genuine technological disruption. Beginning with pilot programs in 2023 and accelerating dramatically over the past 18 months, correctional systems across 17 states have introduced digital tablet programs. Incarcerated individuals receive basic tablets for communication, educational programming, and the variable that is reshaping everything, a digital commissary credit system. Instead of physical goods moving through the facility, credits transfer between accounts on a monitored platform. The intended effect was surveillance and control. The actual effect was to create a second parallel economy running on digital tokens alongside the physical one. And as any monetary economist could have predicted, the two economies immediately began trading against each other at a floating exchange rate that no administrator set and no algorithm controls. Right now, says a former inmate who was released from an Ohio facility 8 months ago and asked to be identified only as Darnell, a physical soup and a digital credit aren't the same thing. Digital credits leave a trail. Physical goods don't. So physical goods are worth more for certain transactions. The rate moves. Guys are tracking it. They are, in the most literal sense, running a foreign exchange desk. The mechanics of the cell block casino. On a yard in a Texas state facility, every Sunday between 1 and 4 p.m., weather permitting, there is a poker game that has been running continuously, with rotating personnel since at least 2017. The table is 2 pushed-together metal picnic benches. The chips are soup packets. The dealer changes with every hand. The man who does not change, the man who has not changed in 3 years, according to multiple former inmates who did time in that unit, is a 41-year-old named Theodore who goes by Books. Books does not play poker. Books runs the bank. His function is not glamorous, but it is indispensable. When a player runs out of physical soups mid-session, Books extends credit against future commissary draws. He maintains a ledger, a spiral-bound notebook kept in a hollowed-out textbook on his shelf that records every debt in the housing unit with a precision that shames most small business accounting. Names or assigned numbers, principal owed, interest accrued, payment deadline. Method of settlement, commissary, stamps, digital transfer, or outside wire. Books doesn't win because he's good at poker, explains one former resident of that unit. Books wins because he's the only person in the room who doesn't have to gamble. He makes money whether you win or lose. He's the house. The spread betting operation that Books anchors extends far beyond Sunday poker. NFL Sundays generate the most volume, but there's action on NBA games, college basketball, boxing, UFC, whatever has a line. The lines themselves are a logistical marvel. Contraband smartphones, which despite confiscation efforts remain prevalent across the American correctional system, with a 2023 federal study estimating over 1 million smuggled devices in circulation, allow inmates like Books to access real-time sports betting lines from offshore books, then translate those numbers into internal commissary markets. The VIG, the house's cut on a winning bet, typically runs around 20%. On a standard football Sunday at a mid-sized facility, Books might process the equivalent of $400 to $600 in commissary value across all bets. His cut, 80 to 120, every Sunday, without fail. But the mathematics that make the casino profitable are the same mathematics that make it dangerous, because the casino creates losers. And losers in a system with no bankruptcy protection and no statute of limitations have very limited options. The psychological dimension of gambling in this environment is something Dr. Edmonds returns to repeatedly in her research. You're in a space with almost no autonomy, she says. You can't choose your schedule, your food, your cellmate, your daily movements. Gambling is one of the few spaces where you have agency, where your decisions matter, where the outcome isn't predetermined by the institution. The fact that the house always wins is almost beside the point. The act of choosing, that's what you're actually buying. That choice can cost everything. 22 years ago, when a man named Raymond first entered the California state system at age 19, the shadow economy was elegantly simple. You borrowed 2 soups, you paid back 3. The 2-for-1 rule, borrow 1, pay back 2, sometimes called the juice, was the only financial instrument in the prison. Interest was 50% flat due on the next commissary day. There was no sophistication because there didn't need to be. Everything happened in the same building, with the same physical goods, among the same relatively small population. Raymond, now 41, now out, now working as a re-entry counselor in Oakland, describes what the economy looked like when he came back in on a parole violation in 2021. It was like somebody had rebuilt the whole thing, he says, sitting in his office, surrounded by the paperwork of other people's second chances. Same bones, same juice, but now there were layers I didn't understand yet. The layers he didn't understand were the external integration points, the mechanisms by which the internal economy had grown tendrils out through the walls and into the legitimate financial system outside. It works like this. A man inside owes books $400 commissary dollars after a brutal NFL Sunday. He doesn't have $400 commissary dollars. He doesn't have close to $400 commissary dollars. What he has is a mother in Fresno who will do anything she can to keep her son safe, and a books who has been running this system long enough to know how to talk to that mother. The conversation doesn't happen directly. It happens through channels. A cousin passes a message to a girlfriend who explains to the mother that her son has a debt, that it's being managed, that if she can send $200 to a number, a Cash App handle, a Venmo, sometimes a Bitcoin wallet address for larger sums, the debt will be reduced to a manageable level. The mother sends the money. She doesn't know who she's paying. She doesn't know what the debt is for. She knows only that her son is safer because she did it. Money drops, Raymond calls them. The family doesn't always know what they're doing. They just know they got a call and they did what they had to do. A 2022 investigative report by the Marshall Project documented this across multiple state systems and found that third-party digital transfers became the method of debt resolution in facilities. The cryptocurrency angle has attracted particular attention from federal investigators because crypto transfers can be sent to wallets controlled by people outside who then convert to cash at a kiosk in a Houston convenience store. When people say prison economy, Dr. Edmonds says, they imagine something isolated, a snow globe. But these markets are deeply integrated with the outside economy. They always have been. The technology just made the integration faster and harder to trace. Twice a year, in most state facilities, there is an event that the shadow economy dreads with the specific existential dread of a bank fearing a run, the facility-wide shakedown. 200 officers, moving simultaneously through every cell in the institution, pulling everything out, searching for contraband, weapons, drugs, electronics, and confiscating any physical currency they find. Anything that looks like a currency reserve, seized. It's a bank run and a bank seizure at the same time, says a correctional officer. The economic disruption from a major shakedown can reset a housing unit's financial system by weeks. Then slowly it reconstitutes, because the conditions that created the economy, scarcity, boredom, human nature, the need for agency, never went away. But 2026 presents a genuinely novel threat to the shadow economy, one that a shakedown cannot reconstitute around: biometric payment systems. iris, and fingerprint-based commissary systems that eliminate physical possession entirely. All transfers happen on monitored platforms connected to verified identities and logged in real time. Every transaction has a name attached to it. Every debt would theoretically be visible. This is the thing that actually worries the economists in these systems, Dr. Edmonds says. What happens to the shadow economy when you remove the physical medium? Does it disappear? Does it move entirely to favor-based credit? Does it just move to whatever isn't monitored yet? History suggests it moves. Raymond, who has thought about this longer than most economists, has a specific prediction. They'll go back to favors, he says. You handle this for me, I'll handle that for you. You can't confiscate a favor, you can't digitize it, you can't track it. The only currency that can't be seized is trust. The shadow market is, in the end, the market's response to the institution. And until the institution changes, the market will find a way. This is Street Economics, understanding the numbers behind the walls. Subscribe for next week's analysis.